All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into final expense solutions. We're going to be looking at a portfolio from Transamerica. And this is really all about how to make things easier for your loved ones after you're gone. You know, these plans can bring some peace of mind. And believe it or not, we're even going to talk about how things like walking the dog or gardening can impact your insurance rates.
It's true. There are some interesting things that can impact those rates that you might not expect.
So final expense, if you're not familiar with the term, it's basically a type of whole life insurance.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's designed to cover those end-of-life costs that often catch families off guard. Things like funeral expenses, outstanding medical bills, or any debts that need to be settled.
So it's really about protecting your loved ones from that burden. And Transamerica is really emphasizing the simplicity and speed of this whole process.
Yeah, it's a big focus for them. They're talking about real-time underwriting decisions, which means you could potentially get approved in minutes.
Oh, wow. In a world where everything seems to take forever, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Right. And they also highlight guaranteed level premiums so you know exactly what you'll be paying, which makes budgeting much easier. And it eliminates that worry about your costs going up as you get older.
Yeah, that peace of mind is so valuable. And of course, there's the permanent lifetime protection aspect of it. What's the age range for that again?
Coverage is available from age 0 all the way to 85.
So it's about providing that long-term safety net no matter what stage of life you're in.
Exactly.
So it seems like they're hitting all the major concerns that people have about insurance, the complicated process, the fear of leaving your family with a huge financial burden.
They are. And I think it's really interesting how they're using technology to make the process so much more user-friendly. The fact that everything can be done digitally just adds to that convenience.
Absolutely. Okay, so now that we understand why someone might want this type of coverage, let's talk about what they offer. Transamerica has several different plans to choose from. Can you walk us through those?
Sure. They have 3 primary options: the immediate solution, 10-pay solution, and the easy solution.
Okay, let's start with immediate solution. It sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it is. You pay level premiums until age 121, and you have the peace of mind of knowing you're covered.
Simple as that.
Right. Then there's the 10-pay solution, which, as you might guess, allows you to pay off your premiums in just 10 years.
Oh, that's a nice option. So you can just get it taken care of and not have to worry about it anymore.
Exactly.
And then there's the easy solution.
Right. Easy solution also involves level premiums until age 121. But there's a little bit of a twist when it comes to the death benefit, especially in the first 2 years of the policy.
You're talking about the graded death benefit. That sounds a little confusing. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. So in the first 2 years of an easy solution policy, the death benefit payout depends on the cause of death. If it's accidental, you receive the full face amount. But if it's due to other causes, the benefit is limited to 110% of the premiums paid.
Okay, so it's not that there's no coverage in those first 2 years, but the payout might be different depending on the circumstances.
Exactly.
And then after the 2 years, everything goes back to normal.
Well, exactly.
The full death benefit kicks in, regardless of the cause. All right, so now we've got a handle on the basic plans. But of course, there's always more to this story. What kind of additional benefits or riders does Transamerica offer to make these policies even more attractive?
They have a few that are worth highlighting. One of the most important ones is the accelerated death benefit rider. This one can be incredibly helpful if you're facing a terminal illness or need to move into a nursing home.
So it's not about like cashing out your policy early. It's about having access to those funds when you need them most.
Exactly. It's designed to provide financial support during a difficult time.
And there are specific requirements to qualify for that, right?
Yes.
It's not just an automatic thing.
Right.
Okay, so what other riders are available?
There's also the accidental death benefit rider, which is pretty straightforward. It provides an additional payout on top of the standard death benefit if the insured person passes away as a result of an accident.
Okay, so it's like an extra layer of protection just in case.
Exactly.
And then they have the children's and grandchildren's benefit rider.
Yes. That one allows you to add term coverage to your policy for your children or grandchildren. And what's really great about it is the conversion option. So that term coverage can later be converted to a permanent life insurance policy for them without them having to go through a new underwriting process.
Wow, that's like giving them a head start on their own financial planning.
It is.
I like that.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about the plans and the benefits, but now let's get into the nitty-gritty of how all this works. How does Transamerica determine your rates and eligibility? This is where things get a little more personal, right?
They do. And one of the things that really sets Transamerica apart is their focus on what they call activity credit.
Okay, wait a minute. You're telling me that going for a walk or gardening can actually affect my insurance rate?
It might sound strange, but it actually reflects a growing trend in the insurance industry. They're recognizing that regular physical activity, even moderate activity, can have a huge impact on your overall health and how long you live.
So they're basically rewarding healthy habits.
That's one way to look at it.
But how do they even track that? Do I have to like wear a Fitbit or something?
No, it's not that intense. They just ask you about your activities during the application process. Things like how often you walk, how long your walks are, whether you garden, or if you do manual labor as part of your job.
Okay, so it's more about honest self-reporting. I can handle that.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking about taking some extra laps around the block to lower my premiums.
Well, it's not quite that simple. But you get the idea, and it's not just about your activity levels. Transamerica also uses what they call single condition decision charts to assess different health conditions and lifestyle factors.
Ooh, what are those?
Basically, they outline how specific health conditions can influence the underwriting decision. Things like asthma, diabetes, high blood pressure. But it goes beyond medical history. They also factor in things like your driving record, whether you use tobacco, even your height and weight.
So they're really taking a holistic view of your health and lifestyle. It's like getting a peek into how the underwriters think.
You could say that. It gives you a general idea of what they're considering and how it might affect your rates. But it's important to remember these charts are just a snapshot. Every individual case is evaluated based on all of these factors.
Right, so it's not a hard and fast rule.
Right.
Okay, so to really see how this all plays out, let's look at some real-life examples. We have Michael, Susan, and Alex ready to share their stories.
They are, and their experiences really highlight how individual circumstances can lead to very different outcomes when it comes to final expense insurance.
I'm intrigued. Let's meet them.
So first up, we have Michael. He's a 45-year-old customer service representative from Florida. Michael's dealing with some health issues: Crohn's disease, high blood pressure, chronic pain, and depression. So he's on several medications. He's also not the most physically active person, and he had a reckless driving incident a few years ago.
So not exactly a picture of perfect health.
Right.
But I'm guessing he's looking for a way to protect his spouse financially. What kind of outcome did he end up with?
Well, this might surprise you, but even with those health conditions and his driving record, Michael actually qualifies for immediate solution with their best rate class, preferred non-tobacco.
Wow. I definitely would not have predicted that. I guess his lack of activity didn't hurt him as much as I thought.
It seems like in his case, the other factors in his profile were strong enough to outweigh that. It really shows that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to underwriting.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Okay, so let's move on to Susan. She's a 65-year-old retiree from Texas. She has high blood pressure, type 1 diabetes, and high cholesterol. But she does walk her dog 3 times a week for more than 10 minutes each time.
So Susan's getting that activity credit.
Yeah.
And at her age, that can be a big help.
Exactly. Does it get her a better rate class?
Well, it could have with some carriers. But in Susan's case, she qualifies for immediate solution with a standard rating.
Okay.
Not the top tier, but still a very positive outcome considering her health conditions.
Right. It's good to know that even with pre-existing conditions, she can still get coverage. And I'm thinking the accelerated death benefit rider could be really beneficial for her, especially with the nursing home benefit.
Absolutely. It could provide some much-needed financial support if she ever needs long-term care.
Okay, so our last case study is Alex. He's a 55-year-old accountant from Kansas. He's currently dealing with congestive heart failure, and he's not physically active at all.
This is where we really see the impact of those lifestyle choices. Because of his health and lack of activity, Alex initially only qualifies for the easy solution plan with a graded death benefit.
Right, and that means a limited payout in the first 2 years.
Exactly.
Not an ideal situation. But wait, there's a twist to Alex's story.
Yes, there is. Now imagine if Alex had the same health history but was more active. Let's say he walked 3 times a week for at least 10 minutes each time. That small change could have a big impact on his outcome.
Interesting.
With that added activity, he might qualify for the immediate solution product. With the standard non-tobacco rating, it's possible, so he would have full coverage right away and a much lower premium. His health conditions are the same, but by simply adding some walking into his routine, he opens up a whole new range of options.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful example of how those small everyday choices can make a big difference.
Absolutely. It's something people often underestimate. We tend to focus on the big things, but sometimes those small, consistent changes can have just as much impact.
It makes you think twice about skipping that walk.
It does.
So looking at these 3 case studies, it's clear that there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to final expense planning.
Absolutely not. Everyone's situation is unique. And it's about finding a solution that truly aligns with your individual needs and goals.
Right. So for all of our listeners out there, what are your biggest takeaways from these examples? Did anything surprise you?
It's a good time to think about how your own lifestyle choices might be affecting your insurance options, and not just final expense insurance, but all types of coverage.
Yeah, that's a great point. And here's another thought-provoking question. This Transamerica portfolio is focused on individual coverage. But what about families or businesses? Are there policies designed to meet those specific needs?
That's a great question, and it's definitely something worth exploring.
Because there's a whole world of financial planning out there.
There is.
And it's never too early to start looking into those different avenues. Yeah, it's amazing. When you really start digging into this stuff, you realize how much there is to think about.
There is.
Like, we often just assume life insurance is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But these final expense solutions have so many different layers.
Right. And I think what makes this deep dive so interesting is how Transamerica is presenting all this information.
Yeah.
They're really trying to make this whole process more transparent and easy to understand, which is a nice change.
It is.
Yeah.
And, speaking of transparency, I really appreciated those single condition decision charts. It's like they're giving us a peek behind the curtain and showing us how those underwriting decisions are actually made.
Yeah, those charts are a good example of how the insurance industry is evolving. They're using data and analytics to create more personalized experiences for customers.
And that personalization is so important because everyone's situation is different.
Absolutely.
What works for Michael might not work for Susan or Alex.
Exactly. It's about finding the right match between your needs and the available options.
And that's where having a good financial advisor can really make a difference.
Right.
They can help you sort through all the choices and make sure you're making the best decision for your situation. It's like having a guide in this sometimes confusing world of insurance,
Exactly.
especially when you're talking about something as emotional as final expense planning.
It is an emotional topic.
It's not just about numbers and policies. It's about protecting your loved ones and giving them financial peace of mind.
Right.
It's about having those tough conversations now so that your family can focus on healing later without having to worry about money. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this exploration of final expense solutions?
I think the most important thing is to feel empowered, to know that you have the information and the resources to make smart decisions about your final expense planning. It doesn't have to be scary or overwhelming. With the right guidance, you can find a solution that brings peace of mind to you and your loved ones.
That's a great message to end on. A sense of empowerment and peace of mind. And I think that's exactly what this deep dive has provided. We've learned so much about final expense solutions, the different factors that can influence our choices, and the resources available to help us make those choices. So thank you to all of our listeners for joining us on this journey. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, knowledge is power. And when it comes to planning for the future, that power is in your hands.